it started so slow, like me, like literally like trembling in my nakedness and like holding my whole body and like covering everything. Like I was so scared of myself. And when I would think about that and I'd go home, you know, or even in that moment, I'm like, look at how scared of just being you are. Like, look at how scared of your own body you are. Like, this world has made you afraid of the only thing that you have here. Like, the only thing that you came here with, you are afraid of in ways. Oh. And that was the shame. And that was like these unlocking situation that I was having in those moments. I'm like, why am I so afraid of myself? Why does other people have more control over my physical body than I do? Like, why am I giving that? Because it's mine to give. So like, why is that theirs? Why is the validation more important than what I want? Like, than what feels like should be mine what feels like, not that it should be mine, but that it feels so right to me. So like good for me to do. I'm so happy to do it. And at that point, I had only been doing things I should do, what I feel like I should do. And it was feeling awful to fucking do, honestly. Like, it was like I was going against everything my heart and my body and my soul wanted, you know, being in these freaking bathing suit model jobs. Like, I'm like, that is more accepted socially.
Yeah.
But it is killing me. It's killing my soul. It's killing everything. And there's so much fear around for other people, and it makes them so uncomfortable. Why? Why is my body making you that uncomfortable? Like, and it was just like, like, if I want to live a life that's true to me, I'm going to have to let other people down. I'm going to have to disappoint people. I'm going to have to like break off and cut off the like cord that is like making, I feel like I am giving them life by just doing what they want me to do. Like, it ran so deep. It was so many years of that, that was coming with me to these shoots. I'm like, we couldn't even like go into all this. We were just shooting. Like, and we wouldn't even like talk for hours beforehand. We would just go right into shooting. And I would be unlearning as I'm shooting and having realizations as we're going. And I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to do what you're meant to do when you're passionate and you're on fire. And like, it feels like, I mean, I know that you'll say the same, but like time goes away.
Yeah.
Like all of the shoulds, all of the pressure in life, like all of the like, I mean, it brings in this like insane presence. Like nothing else exists outside of us being together making art.
Yeah.
Time stops, the world stops, anyone else's perceptions, what anyone's gonna think about it. It's like journaling when you're alone and like journaling for yourself and like thinking no one's ever gonna see it. So you better just fucking get it out. Because if it stays in, it's gonna kill you.
That's a really interesting, good description. It was kind of like writing a really private journal with someone,
yeah.
Like at the same time.
Yeah, it really, like when I think about it, it's what it felt like. And it was like, there has to be so much trust to do that with somebody. Like it has to be, I mean, at times it just felt like me with me because you were so respectful and so just like, you were there in this way that I needed you to be there of like support, but also like you were in your creative genius and to watch you. Cause like, obviously it is collaborative in the way like Ryan would have to be like, stop, please hold. Like that's what he would say.
That's my favorite shoot instruction.
Like that's probably the only like 2 words he said to me. And mind you, he's like trembling. Like he's like, just, I could tell when you go into your genius because you have 10 cameras, none of them have film loaded in them.
Yeah.
None of them are prepared to go. And you're like, please hold, oh my gosh, don't move. And like it was like that was the validation I ever even like actually wanted in this life was like you as you are, just sitting there as you are. And what you're doing is absolutely perfect to the point where I'm going to be trembling to capture this correctly. And like you obviously, I mean, I want you to talk actually more about like your process there.
I try not to be, You know the expression like fake it till you make it? I've tried to never be that.
Yeah.
Because I would rather find people like you that I can just be honest and emotionally reflective of what's going on. And if it's not working, just be in the like, oh, this isn't it. And if it's confusing, to be confused, so that when you get to something that's like moving you so much, you can just let it out. And they don't have to wonder like, oh, are they being serious? Are they just trying to build me up? Like I try to be as excited as I am and as confused as I am. And, but yeah, getting to that point with you was a huge deal for me too, because I mean, one, you were the first person I ever shot completely naked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that.
I had done like some, semi stuff,
Yeah.
but that was a really confusing trajectory for me too, because I knew I liked working with models. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of issues around sexuality and gender and even being attracted to people and working with making beautiful photos of people of the sex that I was attracted to just seemed like great or like a good time. But like I said, there was so much more going on with me about like why I was doing it. And a couple of years into doing like model shoots, I was like, do you want to be in like beauty magazines? Do you want to be a fashion photographer? Do you want to like... And I was like, yeah, I don't really care about these genres of photography. I just have so much trauma and interest around this like male-female photographer subject dynamic that I feel like I can explore respectfully and make beautiful work, that I'm drawn to keep doing it. But I wasn't very interested in like the entire world that goes with when you get into something. Mm-hmm. And when we met and started shooting, and like you said, when we started shooting, I think it was probably like 4 times into meeting or whatever before we ever did anything like that, which is quite a bit of time because we were never in the same state. It was like trying to plan trips to go shoot. So it was just like every few months or something. But eventually we started making some work. And to me, the key for me with you was you got to this point of you really let go of how it looked. Mm-hmm. And I guess I can elaborate on that because it's actually, it sounds simple, but it's really, really dramatic. Mm-hmm. Like photography is such a confrontational experience, even between friends. It's like you do a thing and once it looks good enough to share, I'll get this thing to share it. And we got to make sure it looks right and looks amazing, good enough that people will pay us for it or buy a print or celebrate us online or something. Like it's so important that it looks good when you're doing it. Yeah. And I just got interested in the well, what does all the work look like when you're not trying to make sure it looks amazing? And then I had the thought of I don't even know because we never do that. Like that immediately gets discarded. And I don't know if it was through conversations or just shooting or just how we were, but you opened up to me about some stuff and I was talking to you about why I was doing it. And somehow the energy came together of we got to get some of this into the photos. And once you started letting some of letting your guard down sounds too simplistic, but once you started meeting it with that energy, even you were talking about our first shoot where you were meeting it with your lip and your face, when we both started meeting the shoots with some of the energy of what was going on, and then not shying away from letting that participate in the stuff we were making. Yeah. I mean, the results just started to speak for themselves. I started to get the film back, and instead of be our first couple of shoots, it was oh, she's so cool, she's so nice, and these are even beautiful photos. Look how pretty this one is. Oh, this is so exciting. I love to meet her. I love that we get to work together. That's one level of reaction. But the level of reaction of getting one back, and with film, it's not just looking on the back of the camera. It's sending it off to the lab, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, I'd get it back.
I feel that was very healing for me. I feel honestly, that was almost one of the most necessary part of us
to not have to see it immediately.
To not take our face to not look at it, to not even really, like, we literally, like, and when you say let go, like, that's the stuff. Like, I feel like that was vital to the process of letting go. You can't see it. It's none of your business. Like, it's going off. Yeah. It's like, and you don't leave that presence that you're in. Yeah. You don't leave the energy space that we've created. You're just in it completely. And if it works, it works. Sometimes it wouldn't. Like, sometimes things would happen to the film. I mean, that rarely ever happened. Ryan is a true pro. But, like, you know, we would sometimes, like, I know we would always end the shoot saying this, like, well, that could be nothing. But, like, if it's something, if we get, like, one of those and they feel even a little bit like what it felt to make it, then that's going to be everything. Yeah.
And starting to get those back, to download some film and then be like, to have my reaction go from like, oh, it's so beautiful, which is the most beautiful one that I should share and send, to have a moment of like, oh my God, that's what it felt like to be in the room. Yeah. Like, and some of them were harder photos. Some of them looked sadder. Some of them looked more complicated. And yeah, just such a ringing endorsement for film, because it also freed us up to just take a bunch of awful stuff. Yeah. If you try something emotional or vulnerable and the photo looks terrible and you see it 2 seconds later, your brain's going to be like, oh my God, what are you doing? Don't look. Yeah, like, let's stop. Yeah. That looks awful. Stop. Yeah. But to just have so much trust in each other to be like, well, we're not going to use anything that looks embarrassing or awful unless we want to share something embarrassing or awful. Exactly. And yeah, it snowballed into work that meant so much more and was so much deeper to me really quickly. Yes.
And so for like some background, we did not live in the same place. So we were basically traveling to shoot for years together. We would have to set up things where it was like, I think our longest, I'm not sure about this, but was 3 months or like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks of us in Europe, traveling together in such close quarters. Mind you, you know, we both had lots of things, you know, we're both kind of like really coming into ourselves, processing so much. There's so much, like, our work is so, like, I mean, our work is a lot, and we're both like, well, we're just going to do this. Like, we're just going to kind of go into it and see what happens, and see what happens when you're with somebody for 3.5 weeks straight and no breaks, and you're just sitting there and like no planned shoots. Everything is kind of just like whenever you feel, go ahead and shoot. And I mean, we had a lot of travel together, but that was one of the longest ones.
We did that twice. We went to Europe for over 3 weeks together twice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So a lot. So we went to, where did we go? Iceland. There was like so many beautiful spots that we hit. And then, I mean, my favorites were just like the little rooms that rinky-dink rooms we would end up in, and just like put our music on, blast it, and like, you know, get into our little creative world. But I really loved what I have come to appreciate on a new level. Like, maybe in that moment I was like, things could be a little different. But when we were struggling, even like in our own relationship, that we would shoot through things. Yeah. Like, even when we had the most tiring, exhausting days, like, no matter what we were doing, like, if we came like back to the room, we would come together, like, not even really come together. We would be like, I would look at you and you would look at me, and we would just know, like, okay, well, maybe today we didn't make the work that we wanted to. And maybe today, like, we just knew that we needed to, in any single, and I think that that's why it was so beautiful to get those photos back of being like, well, this is what it looks like to shoot at the end of a day of shooting for, you know, like a workshop or something else, where it was like under the craziest conditions we were shooting with no judgment, just seeing what it was. And I was learning so much about myself through that time. Like, you know, and our relationship was like, really, like, it was the work that was getting stronger. Like, I mean, our relationship was getting stronger, but like, it was the work that was changing. I was changing, like, I was getting more comfortable being with myself in my body. And like, you could see that transition in the photos. Like, oh, she knows herself. She's in herself. Like, she has, you can tell that I'm not thinking about the way that I'm looking and being pretty. Yeah. And then on your end, I could just see, like, when I look back, I could see the progression of your work and like the comfortability of you even going outside of your comfortability with shooting and pushing your own boundaries. Like, we're both pushing our boundaries in crazy circumstances and like, I mean, freezing cold temperatures at times, like, and I remember being in like the